Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Mike Catalana, Jenna Cottrell, and Dan Fates up in Orchard Park, where today, yes, it's sunny, and Dan was hanging out as the OTAs, the organized team activities, are underway. I'll start with this, guys. The COVID vaccine issue is a personal choice, right? We hear this all the time. And it's you as a person, whoever we're talking to now, it's your personal choice, whether you get it, whether you don't get it, what your family does, all those things. What we're talking to you today is about how it impacts your football team, the Buffalo Bills. And there is an impact no matter what decisions are made. So, Dan, I'll start with you. We heard from Sean McDermott today. Overall, what was Sean's thoughts on getting his players vaccinated and how he's handling it in the room?
Well, he said a couple of things that really stood out to me. He talks about how he's fully vaccinated, Brandon Beane's fully vaccinated, the Pagulas, both owners are fully vaccinated. And he made a comment, I think, that really stood out for me, is that he said he got vaccinated not only for the good of the team, but for also the community as well. And look, while he talked a lot about respecting each other's opinion and talking about, he said he's trying to educate them and not trying to convince anybody. That to me stood out, guys. I don't know about you, but does he need to educate players about what the benefits are of the team? Because he said he's also concerned that they would reach that 85% threshold that would allow them to function with lesser COVID restrictions, meaning fewer mask in-person meetings. So I took a lot away from what Sean McDermott said.
Yeah, and Jenna, when we talk about it that way, when he says about educate, you could think of it as like, Sean McDermott's not a doctor, right? Yeah. So when he's educating, I do believe part of that conversation is not even talking about the benefit of actually getting a vaccine. And maybe there are people that don't think there is. That's fine. But he's talking, I think, about the benefit for the football team.
Yeah, and I think that's a point that sometimes gets overlooked in this because of the way this year has been and how you could have, if 85%, if that threshold is reached, like Dan was talking about, those COVID restrictions for a team would look different. And you would have to think that it would be a little bit easier to operate having more of your players be vaccinated. So when you take a look at it, it is a personal decision and it's up to every player, every person if they do want to get it. But when you look at that collective and that whole and that effect that it could have on practices, on meetings, having games in terms of players available, not available, it's dramatically different. And this is another wrinkle that teams are going to have to deal with. And Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane want to be as prepared as possible. And I think they want it to be a personal decision, but they know how much that could affect the on-field product.
And look, we've all been part of teams, right? At a level. These guys are professionals. It's very different. But the one thing I think we can all relate to is on almost every team we've all been on, there's a leader. There's the guy everybody looks towards, right? Josh Allen is that guy on this team. There is no doubt in my mind. He's the quarterback. He's an all-pro. He is one of those players. Dan, it is different, whatever Josh Allen says. Again, his personal choice as a man, but then there is, what does he do? Maybe more importantly, what does he say to the team? And what did he say today?
Well, and that's the thing, is he talks about how that they've had a lot of discussions and that he was going to keep them in-house. Look, Josh made headlines. I'll put it in air quotes, headlines, for saying early this offseason he wasn't sure if he was going to get the vaccine. At that point, vaccines weren't available to everybody. He was in a different state. All of those things are totally different than now. But he said that he wasn't going to get into those discussions. He wasn't going to talk to the media about that. And that's all that was pretty much the media wanted to talk about today, because it is a big deal. Because Sean McDermott is looking around, and I give him a lot of credit for being educated for around what's going on around the other professional sports leagues. He talked about MLB, how teams are now not having to wear masks and not having to socially distance if they've reached that threshold. Talked about how the New York Yankees had about 7 organization members come up with COVID. And then he talked about Tommy Sweeney. And he said, if you guys need any reason to think about getting the COVID vaccine, Tommy Sweeney got it, got myocarditis, and was done for the year from COVID. And so a lot of things like that, I think, went into this where, again, don't click off this video if you're anti-vaccine or anything like that. It's just the fact of looking at it from a best case scenario for the Bills. And I think that's how we should try and look at it as, guess what? It's a benefit to the team if they are vaccinated, if it makes them less susceptible to COVID and possibly having what happened like Tommy Sweeney happened.
Yeah. And Jenna, the other part too is it's not just where you could, obviously, everybody wants to avoid COVID itself, But they're also talking about exposures, and we saw a ton of that last year where it's secondary. You got exposed to it. I know the NBA's rules, and we haven't seen all the details of the NFL's, but the NBA's rules was if you're vaccinated and you have exposure to somebody, you do not have to quarantine. You can go ahead and play. And whether a player tells the public how he is, whether he's vaccinated or not, the team knows because it's part of the way it's dealt with. So during the season, we saw it last year. If a player's vaccinated, they're not going to be dealing with it this year.
Yeah. And I think of, in the season this past year when the tight ends room, there was an issue and then tight ends had to quarantine and how that affected, getting ready for game days and all of those things. Yeah. I mean, there is, when you look at it, there is a reason why this is so hotly debated because it is such a personal decision. But when you come down to it, it will have an effect on the players on the field and how they are able to operate. And I think that is why, I feel like we have to keep asking these questions because of the impact could have. But this is something that's not going to go away. And it is interesting as Josh Allen of a leader of the room because he has guys all across the board. And also being a leader is figuring out what direction you want to go in and how to get everyone on your boat, on your team. So that's another thing for him that he's going to have to navigate because this is, again, not going away and something that as a leader, everyone is looking to him and saying, okay, what is he doing?
Yeah, Josh Allen's going to try and walk the fine line between the players in the locker room that are pro-vaccine and want to get the COVID vaccine and against the players that are, for their personal choice, do not want to get it. Josh is trying to be a leader because he's not trying to please the media or the fans. He's got to worry about 60 guys in that locker room, like Mike said and Jenna said, that look up to him. And like I said, we're going to make more comments about what he said than anybody else because, like you said, he is this leader of the team.
Yeah. All right. Look, we got plenty more to talk about. If we're going to be recording a podcast tonight, because we will talk football because they're out on the field for the first couple days of their organized team activities. So when you comment here, like, subscribe, all those things, let us know some questions, some things you want us to go over in our podcast that we're going to be recording as we look to football. This is a big part of what is going on at the moment, and I think the team is dealing with it, and management of the team is dealing with it, and as Dan just said, it's going to be an issue all year long. We're going to let Dan get out of Orchard Park before the thunderstorms come, and we're going to let you go for your day, but check back with us later. Make sure you, again, like, subscribe, and comment, and make sure you spend a lot of time, there goes Dan, on the Buffalo Plus YouTube page. Dennis, hanging over top of the graphics. Dan is already out in Orchard Park, and I'm Mike Catalana. Thanks for watching here on Buffalo Plus.